please share for you a career-defining moment or a moment that said, oh yeah, this is where I want to be, this is how I want to go into film, this is how I decided to go.
That happened very early in my life. That happened when I was about 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old. And I saw the original 1967 Planet of the Apes. And I saw that, and I fell in love with the ape makeups. And I just had to do it. And so I over the next like 3 or 4 years, I picked up makeup effects books and stuff, and I taught myself, and I eventually had a really great ape makeup. And so that's kind of how I started. And then once I got into that character, it was so much fun being this other character, and that I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go make more. And then I just fell in love with the process.
That's a good place to have started, you know, to find that kind of passion and that excitement in something like this so young.
Yeah, we never have to work for a living.
100%. That is the ideal, the sweet spot, if you will.
When people say, hey, we'll pay you money to make this toy, and then we'll pay you to film you playing with it. Okay, I'll do that.
I'm happy to.
Okay, we'll go play and get paid for it. Nice.
All right, and is there anything specific, like I don't know if there's a course for it, or how did you kind of actually start making? Did you just say, okay, I'm going to sit in my garage and, you know, make myself the effects, the makeup?
No,
how did
it started with this magazine back in the 60s and 70s called Famous Monsters of Film Lab.
Ooh, wow.
And in the back of this magazine, there was a ad for $2.50 you could buy a monster makeup handbook. So I did that. But the interesting thing about that was the book was done by the godfather of all makeup, a guy named Dick Smith, who lived in New York. And he was famous for doing like Little Big Man and The Exorcist and all these other movies back in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. So when I got to college, I found his address in Who's Who of America.
Oh, wow.
And so I wrote him a letter. And strangely enough, 2 weeks later, he called me on the phone.
Oh, wow.
And said he really liked the makeups that I had sent him. And he said we set up a deal where I would send him pictures and questions on paper and a blank audio cassette. Mm-hmm. And he would answer all the questions, and he would also add a bunch more information, which was really fun. And then eventually, he would say, go do this makeup, and I'd go do that makeup. Now do an old age makeup, and I would go and do an old age makeup. And then one day he said, you're better than 70% of the people that work in Hollywood. I see no reason for you not to go down there. Wow. And so I moved down to Los Angeles, and he provided me with some introductions to some of the people down there, and that's kind of how that got rolling.
Oh, but you know, to meet one, I'm guessing he's a bit of your idol. Like
he was at the time, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, wow. What a way to sort of rise to the ranks.
I thought when he called me the first time, I thought it was my college roommates pranking
me.
Yeah. Like, no way, that's not going to happen.
Oh, wow. Wow, what an experience, but wow. All right, so I guess from these experiences and from everything you've kind of had through life, is there like a principle or a guideline that you sort of follow when you're making your films, when you're doing your movies? Is there something to say, okay, I want to make sure I have this in my films as I move forward?
Well, as far as like a lot of my work involves creatures and characters, and for me, it's really important that they are believable, and it happens on so many levels. For me, it's like, are they believable on a physical level, on an emotional level, or in a psychological level? Because I've seen so many times where people would they'll design what looks maybe like a cool monster,
right.
and then it like, okay, here's an example. I was working at a previous company, and they didn't know my real background because they just knew me as this artist that worked at Disney and stuff like that. They didn't know I made lots and lots of monsters. And the guy who owned the company, he got some money. He's going to make his own horror movie. Mm-hmm. And so he has this kid help try designing the monster for him. Mm-hmm. And the first thing he says, like, I want it to have a big superhero body. And I'm like, well, that's a superhero, not a monster.
Yeah.
And then he said he wants tentacles coming out of the back. So next thing you know, you have this like superhero guy with spaghetti coming out of his back. And it's like, what's going on here? And then he says, hey, instead of giving him hands, let's give him like big scythe, like sickles. And like, okay, and so now it's this really weird looking character.
Half Wolverine, half tentacle monster.
Yeah, not even that interesting. And so I asked the question, so what does its function in this movie? What does it have to do? I mean, obviously it's supposed to be terrifying or something, right? But he says, in the first scene, it goes to the phone and it taunts the hero. And I said, so how does he answer the phone if he doesn't have thumbs? And that's kind of how the whole design thing started, for is like creating a believable character. And that's my philosophy, is like, whenever I made something, I would do lots and lots of testing to see if it could actually pull off that feat, whether it be answering the phone or just as simple as standing there or walking along the ground. It has to be able to be believable.
All right, that's a very good philosophy. All right, I think that is the time we have, so thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you very much.